Today on our 2017 GMC Sierra, you're going to be taking a look at, we'll show you how to install the Roadmaster Diode 7-wire to 6-wire Flexo-Coil wiring kit. Part number RM-15267. That's what our wiring looks like when it's installed on our vehicle. You can see the 6-pole plug keeps a nice clean look on the front of the vehicle. It's going to have a spring-loaded lid. On the inside of the lid, it's going to have a little lip that's going to sink right down inside of that circle. It's going to help keep any dirt and debris from getting in on our connections. This is going to give us the connection point between our RV and our GMC to transfer all of our light functions to our towed vehicle. And how it's going to do that is with our umbilical cord. Our umbilical cord, you can see it is coiled. This is going to help keep it from dragging the ground while we're traveling. It's also going to have a nice thick vinyl coating. It's going to help keep the weather off all of our wires that are running through it. It's going to give us our 6-pole side, and it's also going to give us our 7-pole side to hook to our RV. Our lid is also going to have a tab on it. What that's going to do is going to help us lock our 6-pole plug into place so it doesn't accidentally come out while we're pulling our vehicle. Now that we've got it hooked up to the RV, let's go ahead and run through our light functions and make sure everything's working properly. Left turn, right turn, brake lights, running lights. This is going to be one of 5 main components in a flat tow setup. The other 4 are going to be your base plate, your safety cables, your braking system, and your tow bar. That's what our kit's going to look like when we get it. We're going to get our umbilical cord. You're going to get your bracket for your 6-pole plug. If you choose to use it, I'm going to show you a different way to use it or to install it, and you get your 6-pole plug. You're going to get your 30-foot of wire. You're going to route from the back of your plug to the back of your vehicle. Your diodes, you're going to have 2 for each side. Butt connector, ring terminal, self-tapping screw, and some wire loom. Let's talk about the butt connector real quick. You're not necessarily going to need that unless you need to extend your jumper wire. To explain the jumper wire, it doesn't matter what side of the vehicle you start on. The directions tell you driver or passenger. It works the same way either way. Anyway, one of your diodes has a yellow butt connector on it like this, or a spade terminal. When we connect it, we're going to be connecting 2 wires into that one so that to power our running lights. And we're going to jump from one side of the vehicle to the other. Normally we can get our jumper wire off of here and we can get it long enough. If we can't, that's what this is for, is to add extra wire to it. If you need to use the butt connector to add that extra wire, I would suggest going to a heat shrink butt connector because it's going to be outside the vehicle. You can find those on our website using part number DW05745. Let's talk about our diodes here for a second. These are going to be, they're going to have an aluminum casing, so they're going to resist any rust or corrosion. They're going to connect directly to your factory wiring in your, or at your taillights. What they're going to do is they're going to allow you to run your signal from your RV and transfer that through your GMC while your GMC is being flat towed. So you're going to get all your signals, brake lights, running lights, turn signals. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let me show you how to get it installed. So now what we're going to do is we're going to route our wire to the back. First, you need to determine the back of your RV, which side your 7-pole plug is on. On the back of the RV that we're doing this install on, it's on the passenger side of the RV. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some electrical tape. I'm just going to route myself some right here. I'm going to tape it to it just to make sure I have enough up here, just like that. And then we're going to route the rest of this to the back of the vehicle. Now, a couple things to know. We can route this from here straight back our passenger side if we wanted to. However, if you were installing the stain plate dual braking system, the wires coming from the your G-force controller, which is mounted inside the truck, it's going to be mounted 9 times out of 10 You're going to mount it on the driver's side on the bottom kick panel. There's wires that have to come off, 3 of them, green, yellow, and white, that are going to tap into this wiring. So we're going to have to take this and we're going to route it across over by the driver's side, and then we're going to go right down the frame rail to the driver's tail light, so that when we run those wires for our braking system out, we can tie right into it. Let me get my wire routed to the back of the vehicle real quick, and I'll show you how I did it. So I ran my wire, this existing wiring right there. I just wrapped it once, went over top of my frame rail, went kind of up into the engine compartment. You can see my wire, I bundled it here, kind of runs down, and this where it comes over my frame rail. Again, where I zip tied it here, this is where I'm going to tie into my braking system. They're going to be getting a stay and play duo. If you haven't picked out a braking system for your flat toe setup, I highly recommend the stay and play duo or the Air Force One. Keep in mind the Air Force One is just for motorhomes with air brakes. This motorhome does not have air brakes, so we're going with the stay and play duo. The stay and play duo is going to tie into this wiring, so make sure you give yourself access to the white, yellow, and green wire. From here, we ran straight down on top of our frame. So if you look up right on top of the frame rail, this is where my wire is. It's not around anything that's hot or moving. I actually came down right behind here. You can take a airline tube if you have some, or a wire hanger, something stiff. What I did is I ran it through this hole in the frame down to this hole in the frame. The reason I did that is because my exhaust pipe is right here, and if I run it on top, then I have a chance of it getting too hot. So I just ran it from there to here. I came out here, existing wiring, I zip tied it all the way. Went on top of the frame up here, to the inside, right here, crossed over top of my frame. This is where my wire's coming out. Then we're going to go straight up to our taillight pocket, which is where these wires are running to. Now we're going to remove our taillight. We're going to use a T15 Torx bit. We're going to have 2 screws here on the inside where our tailgate closes. We're just going to pull back on our lights. If they don't want to pop out, if you look right inside, you see that this bottom one has got little tabs on it. Look at the top one. It's kind of stuck on that one. Take a trim panel tool or a screwdriver, you can pop it off of there. There we go. Just like that. So we're going to go ahead and remove our tail light from our wires. These are bulb and socket, so we're just going to turn and pull. Then we can set our light aside. So if we look at our tail light, by how we unhooked our wires, our center one goes to our reverse light, so that one's automatically out. We need to determine our running lights, brake lights, and turn signal. So on our wires, I'm going to start with this large one here, which was the this very bottom one, and see what signals it gives me. We're going to test it out. So what I suggest is you unwrap the wire loom that's on it, give yourself wire to work with. So you can see 3 wires go in, same 3 wires come out, and they go up to this top light. So our top light and our bottom light probably run the same functions, our running lights and our blinkers, or at least our running lights and our brake lights. So now what we'll do is we'll test them out and see what we come up with. So we've determined that this green wire, we're going to use the lower bulb, the big one. Actually our top one and our bottom one both have the same functions, but we're only going to be using one bulb. We're going to use a lower one because on our light, the lower one is the largest one. So we determined with a test light Green wire is going to be our brake signal and turn signal. Brown wire is going to be our running light. So I ran my wire right up through the pocket here, my taillight pocket. You can see I'm not going to have enough wire to jump from here across over to the other side, so we're going to have to add some, as I mentioned. If you don't have any more wire, you can find some on our website using part number 16-1-1. So let's start with the two wires we're going to be attaching our diodes to. We'll start with our green wire, which is our brake light and running light, or brake light and turn signal. We're going to cut it like that. Strip back both ends. And take our diode. Let's take two of our spade connectors. We're going to put one on each one of those wires. So like that. We'll take our diode. And you can see we're going to have two on one side, one on the other. Out is going out to the light. In is coming in from the wiring or from our vehicle. Plug that in there. Plug it in here. Really doesn't matter which side it's on. We'll plug that in like that. Now for that, because we're on the driver's side, we're going to take our wiring here and we're going to split it. So we're going to separate all these. We're going to be using the yellow wire. We're going to cut our yellow wire, cut it about right here. Strip that back, and then we'll add our other spade terminal. And we'll add it here. That's going to give us our combined brake light and turn signal. Now, if your vehicle has a separate system where it has three-wire or a three-wire system where your brake light, your running light, and your turn signals are all separate wires, you can still run them like this and run your bulb off of one function. Or convert it to a combined signal, and while it's being flat-toed, it'll work that way. Once you turn the key on, it's going to go back to normal. However, if you're wanting to stay with that three-wire system, you will have to pick up an extra diode and put three of them on one side. That being said, our green wire, this is going to have to go over to our passenger side. So we're going to drop this back down because that's going to be for our brake and turn signal over there. Go back down through. Our brown wire is going to be our running light signal. We're going to tap it into this wire right here. So we'll do the diode the same way. Pull off our yellow one. We're going to connect this here. Now we'll cut our brown wire coming off of our diode kit wiring. We're going to splice this one a little bit farther back, like that. Now the piece that we took off is not going to be long enough to go to the other side. Again, you can find some on our website, 16-1-1. If you want the same color, you can use it. You don't necessarily have to. I have some black wire that I'm going to use. I'm going to splice in here. So we'll strip back that in, put these two together. Add the yellow spade connector. That's going to plug in there. We'll drop this down through the hole. And our diodes are connected to our lights. Now we have our white wire. That's going to be our ground. We can ground this anywhere we want, as long as it's on metal, and as long as it's clean. I can ground it right here, I can ground it back here, you know, pretty much anywhere. Seems like this up here in the front, even though that's open too. This up here seems to get really dirty. This, not as much. So I might put it right there. Cut that. Back. Add the ring terminal. Self-tapping screw. And mine right there. Now we're going to take some black silicone. We're going to put it right around our connectors there. They kind of cup, so this is going to help keep any water from sitting there or pulling up and causing our connections to corrode. Our diodes have sticky tape on the back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick them together. Just like that. Now, our reinstall our bulbs on our taillight and reinstall our taillight. Now we also had to extend the green wire. Again, you want to use a heat shrink butt connector outside the vehicle. It's really going to help your connection there. I'll go ahead and take out our passenger side light, same way we did our driver's side. Now we determine here on our passenger side, it's going to be the same as driver's side. Green wire is going to be our brake light and turn signal. Brown wire is going to be our running lights. So now we're going to connect our diodes the same, with the exception of our running light is only going to have one wire going into it. We're not going to have to splice because we have our jumper coming from our driver's side. We'll go ahead and do that one now. Stick them together. And then we'll add our silicone. Once you've added your silicone, you can go ahead and hook it back up to your taillight and reinstall your taillight. Now we're going to mount our 6-pole plug on our bumper of our vehicle. I'm going to use this large space here. So I'm going to take a hole saw bit and I'm going just about the right size of this edge. I can always make it a little bit bigger if I have to, but I want to make sure that this fits tight in there and doesn't move around. So right now I'm using 1.5 inches. If you can see it, there's actually a piece of metal that runs right along the back side of this where we put our hole. This part of it, or the back of our 6-pole plug, was actually touching it, which means if this was touching it, we wouldn't be able to put our boot back on. So with your same hole saw bit that you used to cut this, I just put a hole in that piece of metal back in there, and now this will sit in without touching the metal, and I can slide my boot on right through the back. I'm going to go ahead and make my holes for nuts and bolts. Make sure you run your bolt through the hole. It's big enough. If not, you can wobble it out a little bit. But I'm not going to be able to slide the whole thing through the hole because the boot is a little bit wider. So I'm going to open up just this hole a little bit more. Then I'll take a little bit bigger hole saw bit and make that hole a little bit bigger. Once you have your plug basically installed, other than hooking up your wires, if there's any additional items you're putting in, any additional wiring or anything like that, like your braking system for instance, it's a good idea to go ahead and get that stuff installed and all your wires ran before you put your bumper back in place. Once you've got all your wiring ran from any other components that you're adding, go ahead and install or reinstall your bumper, your fascia, and your grille in reverse order from the way you took it off. Now you want to run your wires through your hole, strip back the ends. We're going to take the boot off our plug, skinny end, put it on first. We'll take our plug, and on the back of it, it's actually going to be listed GD for ground, TM is going to be your running lights, LT left turn, RT right turn. If you're adding a charge line or anything like that, it'd be for your center post, and you have an S for a secondary post, open post if you want to add anything else later on. Take a flathead screwdriver or Phillips. I find that the flathead works a little bit better on these. Make sure you don't take those screws out all the way because they're little and they will get lost. I'm going to start with my right turn, which is going to be my green. Left turn. Ground is going to be my white. And then my running lights. If you don't have any, you can find some on here at eTrailer.com. Some dielectric grease. Cover up your connections or where your things are here. It's going to help keep them from corroding. It'll make this last a lot longer. It keeps any moisture from building up. We'll take our boot, and slide that right on top, and take a little bit of wire loom that comes in your kit. Cut off about this much. Now we'll take some electrical tape. I'm going to start right here on this edge. That's not only going to hold the boot on, it's also going to seal the end of it. And we're just going to take our tape and go right over the top of our wire loom. Slide that back in there. We have our hardware that comes with our kit. Now that we've got our wiring hooked up to our plug and our plug installed on our bumper, we'll go ahead and test everything out to make sure it's working properly. Now we'll test out our wiring using an alternate power source. This is going to simulate being hooked up to your RV. Brake lights, right turn. Tail lights, brake lights, left turn, tail lights. That'll do it for a look at an installation on the Roadmaster Diode 7-wire to 6-wire Flexo-Coil wiring kit, part number RM-15267 on our 2017 GMC Sierra.